And I think going into this, we can kind of look at somebody that did this well, that communicated well in conflict. And I want to go through the life in just a short period of time in Abram. This is later, his name was changed to Abraham. He's the father of the faith. And he was traveling with his nephew Lot, in fact. Abram communicated well and resolved it well. And if you remember in Genesis chapter 12, we see God call Abram out of literally nowhere. And he told him to follow me and go to a place, go to a land that I'm going to show you. And then eventually he said, I'm going to make you into a great nation. In Genesis chapter 13, it says, so Abram went up from Egypt to the Negev with his wife and everything he had, and Lot went with him. That's key. Abram had become very wealthy in his livestock and his silver. And notice that Lot went with Abram. Lot didn't have a direction from God. And that was okay. That's where he was at that time, and that was fine. And he went along with them, and that's how that relationship was, because they were close in family. It's like, nephew, come with me. And so that's what they did, and they went along. And the relationship was just about that. But what we notice, relationships must first be vertical, meaning your relationship with God, to have successful horizontal relationship. So we're talking about vertical and horizontal relationships. Because when we have faith, we have faith in Jesus, it is a free gift. Anyone who puts their faith in Jesus is absolutely a free gift. But faith is something that you get for free, but it's also something that you invest into. Meaning every time you're obedient with every bit of information that you have from God, and when you're obedient with it, when you take that step, it's an investment into the future. And I'm going to show you this, and it says, the Bible tells us that to supplement your faith with virtue. 2 Peter 1:5. Virtue is the action. And Lot was moving with Abraham. Not at all bad. There's nothing wrong with that. But Lot was traveling with Abram. It's important to recognize the types of relationships that are around you. They're not inherently bad. But notice there could be an expiration date on the relationships. Maybe even if it's one of your closest family members at this time. Because if you're truly following God, there might be a time when there's some separation. Maybe there's not a conflict, maybe there's not an issue, but quite literally, God tells you to go somewhere where He doesn't tell them. We always want to follow God. We don't want to follow family. And then it continues, it said, but the land could not support them while they're staying together for their possessions. And they were not able to stay together, and quarreling arose among Abram's herdsmen and Lot's herdsmen. And it also says there were Canaanites and Perizzites living in the land. There came a time where this family and also business relationship couldn't sustain anymore because the resources were drying up. And it says the land couldn't support them. And I wonder if we think of in our own lives, what are those times in those relationships, or maybe there is in one right now where the land isn't supporting it. The same things that kind of glued you together, it's not supporting that relationship anymore. We recognize maybe there's an expiration date on this. Lot originally was traveling with Abraham to the land that God had showed him, but some things changed. You ever had some things in your life where some things change? I would encourage you to chat those things. Like, what are those things right now? And what happens, I'm curious about this one, what happens when someone's going along and then it becomes apparent when you're actually starting to go in different directions? Let's hear what Abram did. Let's see how he communicated, how he dealt with this. It says, so Abram said to Lot, let's not have quarreling between you and me, or between your herdsmen and mine, for we are close relatives. This whole land is before us. Let's part company. If you go to the left, I'm going to go to the right. If you go to the right, then I'm going to go to the left. And I think there's a couple of things that we learn here. The first thing is that he communicated the problem. So critical that he actually recognized and verbalized that there was, in fact, an issue. Too many times, I've been guilty of it, you've been guilty of it, but the time where we get in problem is when there is a serious issue, there's a problem coming to a head, but we never verbalize it. We never say anything about it. And maybe one person, maybe Lot never fully noticed this. Maybe Lot was just going to keep traveling along and he never noticed it, but he was building up resentment. Maybe he was getting upset. There was these things, because notice in the text, it says that there was actually quarreling. What was actually happening was quarreling between Lot's herdsmen and Abram's herdsmen. But notice what Abram said. He said, let's not have quarreling between our herdsmen. But then he said, we shouldn't have it between us. He recognized this is getting under your skin. There's a problem here. I love the wisdom in Abram because he communicates the problem. It's important to verbalize the problem. If you're having an issue with somebody, if it's in your family, whatever it is, first verbalize the problem. And the next thing was that he recognized and he showed the bigger picture. When there was an issue, yeah, there was some serious issues, but he recognized, look, the options are open. There's nothing keeping us together. Like we shouldn't have to fight over this. God's blessed us with all this opportunity. The second thing I think what he noticed and we need to notice is that he was fine with the fact that relationships evolve. Relationships just change. You ever had a friend maybe come up to you and say, hey, you've changed. Something about you's just changed. Like what's going on? Like you've changed a little bit. Now, take some introspection. Maybe there has been something that's changed in you. That's quite possibly true. I had one time in my life, particular, while still in the military, but got a pretty big promotion. And came back and I was with my friend at the time. I don't think we even talked about work at all. I didn't know him in a work capacity, but we were only friends. But we were both in the military, if that makes sense. We didn't serve together in that way. But I remember he came up to me and said, yeah, I know you got this big promotion. Like, something's different about you. And he meant it in a negative way. And I think that's what happens sometimes is that as we grow, as we change, there is some evolution that happens in our own spiritual, physical, emotional. Maybe it's your career, maybe it's your job, maybe it's just a change in your season. You have a group of friends and then one gets in a serious relationship. We've had that before. And things change. Like the relationships just change. You're in a different stage. Or maybe you're one of the first in your friend group that gets married or has a child. Maybe has that big promotion or something happens. Someone might come to you, you've changed. Maybe, but it's maybe not a negative thing. Maybe it's just the reality that relationships evolve because people change. Maybe not your character. Man, if there's a character issue, you got to get to that. There's an issue there. But I love how Abram didn't force the relationship because it would have diverted him from where God was leading him. So he didn't try to force the relationship. He didn't try to, at all costs, well, hey, we're family, so we're just going to make this thing work. And it would have diverted him. But I love how he verbalized the problem and then how he recognized that relationships evolve. And Abram did an excellent job of communicating conflict. In the next verse, it says, Lot looked around and saw the whole plain of the Jordan. So what happened was Lot was able to take his problems and look up. Take his eyes off the problems and look up, to look around, to say, this isn't a fight against us. When you're not competing against somebody, it can't become a fight. When you're for that person, like Abram was to Lot, Abram said, hey, I'm for you. Like, I want you to have the best. And instead of Abram trying to manipulate the situation where he gets the better end of the deal, instead what he did was offer Lot the best. Whatever you think, I'll just go the opposite way. I'm going to let you choose. I'm not trying to manipulate. I'm not trying to inject myself into this. I'm just going to say, hey, there's a problem. You know it. I know it. And then I recognize the relationship's changed. It's fine. Like, I'm not mad at you. I realize, hey, we're just going in different direction. I'm not making a judgment on where you're going, but I know where God's leading me. And I'm going to go that way. And I love how he did that. And conversely, James explains how the lack of communication with God, when we don't have that vertical relationship, that lack of communication with God bubbles over into harmful relationships with others. And he says in James chapter 4, verse 2 through 3, you desire and do not have, you murder, you covet, you obtain. So you fight and quarrel. You do not have because you do not ask. You ask and do not receive because you ask wrongly to spend it on your passions. He said because you don't have that proper relationship with God, you're not seeking him, you're not asking him, and he's not becoming your desires. Your desires are skewed. Instead, you're looking at other people, you're competing with them, you're comparing yourself to other people, and then you begin to fight with them because they have something that you believe is yours. That's the heart of covetousness. When you get those proper vertical relationships, you can then have the proper horizontal relationships. And I think if we improve the way we communicate with others, it's indirectly from that, we need to spend time with God. When we notice there's some quarreling, and we notice there's some issues around us, I've noticed this in my own life. When I begin to get short with people, when I begin to snap at people, when I make a little quibs and little insults, I notice there's something with me. I'm trying to compete with other people. I'm trying to fight against them. I'm trying to get something. Instead, I need to have a better relationship with God. I need to seek him. I need to have a better horizontal relationships, and I recognize the way to do that is with vertical relationship. I need to spend time with God. And so quite maybe there might be some people in your life that you need to let go. Like there's some people in your life that I think there could be you need to just let go. Not saying make this hard break, not this big blow up fight. Like it doesn't have to be that way. I love how Abram did that and he just let him go. And he blessed him as he went. He didn't sever the relationship. The relationship changed. He still loved his family. He still loved his brother. He still loved the person that was in his business, the person that he was in ministry with maybe. But the relationship changed, and it's okay, just bless them as they go. I hope this has been a blessing to you. Subscribe, and then make sure that you share this with somebody if it is a blessing to you and you think someone else could benefit from this. And I hope, as always, that this helps you to prepare for action.